Lynn Lyon with Pioneer Natural Resources. I apologize, guys. She manages development for the Texas Triangle, which is the triangle from DFW to San Antonio, Austin and Houston, of natural gas stations for natural gas station transportation. So then we have Ed Ireland, who is with the Barnett Shale Energy Education Council. He has a PhD and has been working in the natural gas industry for 25 years. And down here we have Colin Gregory with the City of Arlington. He is a gas well coordinator and has been with the city for different cities across the DFW area for about 7 years. So let's go ahead and get started. The first question we have for you guys is, what is natural gas? Oh, let me go ahead and introduce our final speaker. We have Ms. Laura Patton from Chesapeake Energy. Oh, no problem. It happens. All right, so our first question is, what is natural gas? And we'd like you to start, Mr. Ireland.
That's a good opening question. Natural gas is primarily methane, which is a gas, and not a liquid. And I read confusion from time to time because natural gas is referred to as gas, and gasoline is referred to as gas. So the two can easily be confused. In fact, I saw a question from someone recently who said, with all this drilling in the Barnett Shale, why is it still costing me $4 a gallon to fill up my car? Well, the two things aren't related. Barnett Shale natural gas is considered to be dry natural gas, meaning it doesn't have any liquid associated with it for the most part. In other parts of Texas or other parts of the United States, in a lot of cases where oil is produced, natural gas will come up with it. So that's kind of where the oil and gas industry kind of designation came from. But in the Barnett Shale, it's primarily just dry natural gas, which, by the way, just to add to more possible confusion, comes up out of the ground with water in it, and it's called dry natural gas. But the dry part is not referring to water, it's referring to oil in it. So let's call that an answer for what is natural gas. Oh, I might add to that, just when you're walking back, that since natural gas is a gas, it is transported by pipelines. And I get questions from time to time about the trucks that people see around here at natural gas sites. And sometimes there's confusion that those trucks are trucking natural gas, and they are not. They're hauling water. And the gas itself is transported by pipelines, and those pipelines are underground and over there.
All right, well, now that everyone knows what natural gas is, we're going to give you guys a few minutes to speak on your profession and how you all work with natural gas. So if you want to start, Colin.
Sure. Again, my name is Colin Gregory. I work for the City of Arlington. The City of Arlington takes in permits which will allow natural gas wells to be drilled inside the City of Arlington. In order for a gas well to be drilled inside the City of Arlington, it has to go through a multiple process, starting with an SUP, then into a permit process, which is voted on by our City Council. And if the City Council approves, then it goes through a process with our inspection groups. A pad site is created, a drill rig is brought out, and all the way from the drill rig all the way to the production of natural gas, the City of Arlington is responsible for inspecting and looking at each of the sites individually to do safety, to do areas that are specific to an SUP, all based off of the city's ordinance. The coordinators do everything from the moment that a natural gas site is talked about, all the way to the parts of inspections, all the way to the life at the end of the wells. So that's kind of what we do in a nutshell.
Right, and my name is Laura Patton, and I work for Chesapeake Energy, which is a natural gas operator. We are an operator who have many wells in the city of Arlington and have to go through the process that Colin just described in order to attain the permits from the city to be able to do that. And my job as a manager of public affairs is to work with the different entities and different levels of individuals that it requires to get those permits. So my main responsibilities include working with local municipalities, both staff and city council members, to educate and inform about our process and to try to eliminate any concerns or answer any questions that are necessary to ensure that either the municipality who's issuing the permit or the neighborhood who is living near one of our well sites or the individuals who are benefiting from the natural gas that we're producing get their questions answered.
My organization, I'm the executive director of the Barnett Shale Energy Education Council, which has been around now 5 years. Next month will be 5 years. And the idea for it actually came from the mayor of Fort Worth, Mike Moncrief, back in 2006. And that was right when the natural gas drilling rigs were starting to move into the city of Fort Worth. And Mayor Moncrief said at one point that his office was getting calls and Chamber of Commerce was getting calls. People wanted information, but they didn't know where to go to get the information. And Mayor Moncrief suggested that the companies that were operating in the area should get together and create an education organization, an information organization, a public outreach effort, if you will, to be able to provide information and answer people's questions and so on. And so that was the origin of the Barnett Shale Energy Education Council. The members are the companies that operate in this area. The Barnett Shale Energy Education Council is an independent organization, a nonprofit organization, and we maintain a website at bsedc.org, and you can go there and find a lot of information or ask a question and it will get answered. So, like I say, we've been around 5 years now, and every day's a new day. It's very interesting.
Hi, I'm Lynn Lyon. I work with Pioneer Natural Resources based in Irving, Texas. We're talking about natural gas and how it's related to oil. Pioneer is actually the largest oil producer in the state of Texas. So we also produce a lot of natural gas. And about 3 years ago, some of the producers, including Chesapeake, decided that we really need to take advantage of this great resource. We've got this inexpensive resource, a lot of power. What kind of markets are out there? How can we promote this? And one of the things my boss felt strongly about is really helping from a producer perspective to get something up and running that was a sustainable, competitive infrastructure between the 3 major cities. So between DFW, San Antonio, and Houston, with Boston obviously being on the way there in Waco. How could we get something up and running and really kind of drive that as, you know, we don't get a direct return on that, but obviously our boat rises when everybody else does. And there were so many great benefits to the environment and lower fuel costs for all the manufacturers and trucks that go through the state. So that's my role for America's Natural Gas Alliance. Even though I work for Pioneer Natural Resources, I lead the efforts in the state of Texas for America's Natural Gas Alliance to set up the infrastructure. That's my responsibility to get the main cities hooked up and have it to go way beyond a triangle to kind of branch out to every different area, north, south, east, and west of here to make sure that people can drive the distance they need to drive.
Hi, I'm Rusty Ward. As was mentioned in the introduction, I spent a long time at UTA. I probably have a 40-year association with this place in terms of being a student, a graduate student, or an employee. And so what I thought I'd talk to you a little bit about is how UTA came to have a natural gas well on this campus. In 2003, that was about a year before Jim Spaniolo came to work here, UTA and quite a number of schools in the state were on the verge of insolvency. There was a very bad economic condition going on in the state, and we lost something in the neighborhood of about $8 million here, which was quite a bit at the time. So UTA is not like, or wasn't at the time, like TCU or SMU, where you can go to a handful of donors and raise a lot of money and cushion yourself against the ups and downs of the state funding models. So we were looking, we were looking for different ways to create revenue at UTA that would help buffer the cost that we're going to have to charge students. To give you an idea, when I went to school here back in the early 70s, it cost about $100 to go to school for a semester. Now it costs you guys, what, $4,000, something like that. The state has shifted the responsibility of payment from the state onto the students. And what we were trying to do was create a buffer against that. In 2003, I started to notice all these derricks going up between here and Austin. As I drive down to Austin, they had a meeting, started looking into it. Turns out there were gas wells. When President Spaniolo came in early 2004, I approached him about looking into this. He, to his credit, there wouldn't be a gas well project without his determination to see it through in the face of some pretty violent opposition. We talked to a number of people, including the Environmental Defense Fund, the Sierra Club, and quite a number of people that were not exactly friends of the industry, but there was two things that convinced me that this project would work, and both of them had to do with Los Angeles. In Beverly Hills, anybody been to Beverly Hills? If you go to Beverly Hills High School, there's an oil well right in the middle of the campus. There's 16 gas wells, or oil wells, in the middle of the campus. It's decorated to look like a mosaic that's got flowers drawn on it there. You can't really see what it is. And the other place was called the Belmont Learning Center. And the Belmont Learning Center today is called the Royal Learning Center. It's in inner city LA. In 1985, before this thing was even conceived, there was a methane explosion that actually destroyed a raw stressful estuary. From that incident, they learned how to mitigate the problems of methane gas. And they built the most expensive high school in the country on this particular piece of property. We knew that we didn't have here at UTA anything like the environment that was in LA. In Los Angeles, the oil and gas starts at about 350 feet and goes down to about 1,700 feet. Here in the Barnett Shale, it goes down to about 8,000 feet. And natural gas has a tendency to want to disperse up, not out. And in fact, unless the gas accumulates to somewhere around 5% to 15% of the total air volume, it will not ignite. Now, when we decided that we wanted to go ahead and do this, the price of gas was much higher than it is right now. If it was the same price today that it was back in 2006 or 7, we might have waited for a while. But the price was sufficient then to where we went ahead and did it. And we created the Maverick Match with the money that comes out of the ground here. The Maverick Match basically matches dollar for dollar money that's given to the universities to create endowments for your scholarships or for the professors' teaching roles here at the university. So that's a brief history of how we got gas well here.
All right, our next question for you guys is, how is natural gas produced? We're going to have Rusty Ward take the lead on this one. Everyone else can jump in.
Well, it's produced in different ways in different places. If it was in LA, it'd be a simple matter of just drilling a hole in the ground, you'd probably get some gas to come up. Here, it's much more difficult. In western part of Tarrant County, you have weather gas. The gas, as Ed mentioned here, is very dry. When we drill the holes out here at ETA, you could walk up to the open hole and there's no gas coming out of it until it was fracked. It's very, very dry gas. So around this particular area, gas is produced in a much different way than it is in other parts of the country.
All right, so our next one is, how is natural gas regulated and what are the safety procedures? And we're going to have you, Mr. Gregory, take the lead on that one.
Sure enough. Now, the city of Arlington has a, as I mentioned before, gas well ordinance. The gas well ordinance sets up rules and regulations that the city goes by for all gas wells in the city limits. Now, the UTA site is one exception due to the fact that it's on state property, and so there's state regulations that is governed by. The city doesn't have any involvement in that site. But the other sites within the city will have all sorts of rules and regulations. We do inspections on the sites from the very beginning, from the moment that the pad site is being created, and again, all the way to the end of the life of the well. Each of these rules and regulations are based off of how our city council feels are the needs for safety here in the city of Arlington. Each of the rules and regulations are based off of a vote procedure, and that is taken into our ordinance. We have rules and regulations for just about anything. Dust, you have rules over that. You have rules over how loud a drill rig can be. You have rules on how loud a pad site can be once it's gone into production. You have rules on traffic. You have rules on if there's a gas well anywhere, it has a rule attached to it. It's our job to go out and inspect and make sure these rules are being followed. And we have inspection procedures that allow us to do that. We're also backed up by our city code from the fire department. Our fire department has a fire code that they also use, that they come out and they inspect our sites with. So there's multiple aspects all over the city, different environments in different ways, but each of the sites are governed and ruled by our city ordinance.
You know, I think I'll jump in and add to that as well, because I think it's important to also recognize that the city is not the only governing entity over natural gas drilling. It is here at the local level, but the natural gas or the oil and gas industry is a heavily regulated industry as well. There's layers of regulation from the federal government to the state government down to the local municipality as well. And so, you know, at the state level, you have the Texas Railroad Commission. It's the primary entity that regulates oil and gas. You also have the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality that regulates on environmental issues. And at the state level, we had talked about the transportation of natural gas, and you have the Department of Transportation that also regulates the pipelines in which the natural gas is transported off of the locations.
Great. Okay, so our next question for you guys is, what are the uses of natural gas? And will you let Ms. Patton
Sure, I'd love to.
primarily address this?
I'd love to start this conversation and welcome others to join in as well, but I'd like to hear from you also what uses of natural gas that you're aware of. Who's confident enough to share something? A little audience participation here. You know?
Well, I thought it was interesting that you had a bus here on campus last week that apparently was powered by natural gas, which I thought was pretty innovative. But I'm kind of curious too as to what other things natural gas could accomplish.
Natural gas is used as a fuel source for transportation. I mean, I think that is a source that is not highly used right now, at least in the United States. In other parts of the world, they rely on natural gas as a fuel source for vehicles more than we do. But it's certainly an area that is prime for growth and opportunity here in our nation, especially with the supply of natural gas here domestically. But you can use the compressed natural gas is typically what is used, and there are examples of that all around the Barnett Shale. City municipal buses, the T in Fort Worth, the buses run on natural gas. You also see that's, you know, as Lynn was saying, her primary job is to increase the demand for natural gas as a transportation source. And do you want to add anything before we move on to other sources?
Just talking a little bit about that, yeah. In Italy now, there's 600,000 vehicles that run on compressed natural gas. In Argentina, there's over 1 million. This is proven technology all over the world, and they don't do it for any other reason other than it's affordable. I mean, they have environmental concerns as well, but their #1 reason they've been doing this for many years, and there are lots of examples of that. But from a bus perspective, 25% of all the new buses that are being ordered in the United States right now are going to run on CNG. So the bus market is taking off like crazy because it's affordable for cities. They have other things. They like to put their money into their policemen, their roads, their teachers. So there's a lot of other places you can put that money when you're not sending it overseas for gasoline. When we first started out on this, talking about vehicles, that was my primary focus, and mainly the big trucks because they use the most fuel. But since then, we are also looking at heavy duty on road, all kinds of trucks, and heavy duty off-road, which is marine, mining, rail and construction. There's a new cruise ship, Viking Cruise, that's running on LNG right now. The wine train in Napa Valley, they're not going to let a dirty train go through there. It runs on CNG. When you go down to San Antonio and you go on the riverboats, those run on compressed natural gas. The Zamboni at your hockey game, that runs on compressed natural gas. Any engine that runs on diesel or gasoline can be switched over to run on compressed natural gas. So that's, in addition, I just saw the other day that Boeing has a project. It's a 15-year project, so we're not going to see anything for airplanes that run on LNG. So anything that runs on diesel or natural gas, they're looking at their alternatives.
In a local example, in terms of transportation, I just had the opportunity to visit with the company that runs the trash trucks here in Arlington, and they have a proposal in front of the city. I don't know how many of you live here and are part of the pilot program for the recycling that they're proposing. But part of that proposal is to convert a certain portion of their trash trucks to CNG as well. And so hopefully that's something that the city can support because, you know, traditionally in the past you would see a conversion like that based on emissions or air quality because the use of natural gas is significantly better for our environment when burned as a fuel source. But now you're seeing it as really an economics-driven initiative because the price of natural gas compared to diesel or gasoline is so much better right now. I think it's about $1.50 per gallon savings that the company could use. And when a trash truck uses something like, I think, 10,000 gallons a year per truck, that savings is significant moving forward.
Each trash truck that switches over is like taking 325 cars off the road emissions-wise. That's the difference to your neighborhoods when those trucks are driving through. So it's even though we're doing it for economic reasons because it's cheaper, we still get the environmental benefits of moving over.
But transportation fuel is only one use. There's many other uses. Anybody else want to venture out there? And
What about electricity?
electricity is another large use of natural gas. The electricity, the lights in the room, you know, are generated by some source, and I think it's almost 50% in the state of Texas that is generated by natural gas. You have other generation, you have coal or nuclear or different ones like that, but natural gas is the cleanest, and right now it's a very abundant source of electricity generation.
So iPhones burn natural gas.
Yes, and they're probably actually made from natural gas as well. The manufacturing of plastics uses hydrocarbons as well, and that agriculture uses methane gas in different forms as well. Are there any major ones that I'm forgetting?
The only thing that's kind of related to transportation to let people know is we're also looking at how we can get our rigs and our hydraulic fracturing engines to run on natural gas as well. We're thinking since this is a less expensive fuel, why would we not try to do that? And then that's less trucks coming in and out bringing diesel to the sites. So that's something we're just looking into now, but like I said, anybody who's running anything on diesel wants to know their options. So as an industry, we're looking into how we can look at those big Caterpillar engines and everything else, and would there be benefits to switching those over to run on compressed natural gas, either there at the site or using liquefied natural gas.
And I want to correct it. Last year it was 40% of the electricity generated in Texas was generated from natural gas.
Another use that comes to mind of natural gas is its primary component of fertilizer. And I recently met with a delegation that came to Fort Worth from Ghana. And Ghana has a shale that's been discovered there, a very productive one, they think. And Ghana is a very small country, 25 million people, and very poor people. And first thing, these government officials came over to talk about how they can develop their shale. The very first thing they wanted to do was to capture the natural gas, build a pipeline a short distance where they wanted to build a fertilizer plant so they could feed the country. That was goal number one. Their second goal was to build a second electricity producing plant. They had one in the country. And the third goal was they wanted to convert their existing electric plant from coal to natural gas for environmental reasons. And I was just very impressed by the order of things they had. I mean, feed your people, provide more electricity, and then yet their third goal before any others was to convert the coal plant to natural gas. So, anyway, get off topic, but the fertilizer is a very important feedstock, or natural gas is a very important feedstock for making fertilizer, and a lot of other manufacturing products.
And I think we can't forget also that natural gas, kind of to give you a visual, how many of you have gas stoves? That is the natural gas that we're talking about, so that kind of gives you a visualization of what it is. And even if you don't, your electricity is generated by it, so you can keep using your electric stoves too.
Awesome. All right, so our next question, we'll start with Mr. Ireland, and is the natural gas industry growing? And tell us about your DFW.
Yes, it is growing, and growing very rapidly. And kind of put a quick historical context in front of you. Natural gas reserves in the United States had been declining for decades, starting back really in the 50s. I think there was an increase, and then natural gas reserves were declining. In other words, we were using more natural gas than was being discovered. And in 1978, President Carter, at that time, actually made the statement in one of his speeches that there was no more natural gas in the United States to be found. We had found it all. And so that was part of his argument there, was because it's all been found, discovered, that it was time to remove the price controls on natural gas. Now, I'm an economist by training, so economists like to think about supply and demand. Let me tell you what was happening back in those decades when natural gas was declining in the United States. The price was controlled by the federal government, and they were controlling the price of natural gas then at about 2 cents per MCF. And to put that in perspective, the price right now is about $2.50 per MCF. It's been $13. So think of it as 2 cents. Well, amazingly enough, when the price was controlled, capped at 2 cents, guess what? Companies didn't drill for it. So the reserves were declining. President Carter signed in the bill that deregulated natural gas. And again, his argument was, well, there's not any more to be discovered, so might as well let the price go up a little bit. Well, it did drift up over time, and although reserves still continue to decline, not quite as rapidly, but they did, until the Barnett Shale was discovered and started being developed, and that was right around the year 2000. And as soon as the Barnett Shale production started increasing, total natural gas reserves in the United States started increasing. And it completely turned around our energy picture. We moved from a country that was that really saw the end of natural gas coming to a country now that has over 100 years supply of it. And the supply just keeps increasing. And every day they discover a new shale. Or I was reading about one today I had not read about. It's a shale under a shale. It's a shale under the Eagle Ford Shale, which is in South Texas. They're calling it the Eagle Bind Shale, I think. Anyway, point being, when the price started going up, it encouraged technology and encouraged drilling. And with the discovery of the technology to get natural gas out of the Barnett Shale, that has now gone all over the United States. There are shales all over the United States and shales all over the world. I mentioned Ghana. Recently met with delegations from Brazil, countries all over the world, Turkmenistan, and a lot of others who are coming here to figure out how to exploit their shales. Anyway, I'll get off topic again. But since the Barnett Shale really turned the whole country around in the natural gas picture, the energy industry in general, natural gas companies and oil companies and oil and gas companies have all been growing because of all the new opportunities that are now out there and all over the United States. In fact, I had a map. Is there on a slide somewhere? If you get it, it's okay. See if we can get it. While she finds it, what happened is this whole Barnett Shale and all the shales in that are being discovered now. Okay, there we go. Let me get to that. You can see, I can't see it very well, but you can see all of these shales that are all over the United States, and you can see the Barnett Shale there in Texas. But if you look over to the upper right, you'll see the Marcellus Shale, which is in Pennsylvania and New York. Over North Dakota, Wyoming area, you'll see the Bakken Shale, which is primarily, the Bakken is primarily oil. And the Bakken Shale has turned around the whole oil picture in the United States. Oil reserves were declining right along with natural gas for decades. The same technology that is being used to get natural gas out of the Barnett Shale is now being used to get oil out of the Bakken Shale. And in the Marcellus Shale back in New York and Pennsylvania, it's primarily natural gas, although there's a little bit of oil in some parts of it. But then you can see the smaller shales just all over the place. There's a shale under Detroit. They're everywhere. So the geologists call shale the source rock. That's where the hydrocarbons accumulated in geologic time. The Barnett Shale 350 million years ago, and over time some of that oil or gas leaked out, and those were the little pockets of natural gas that companies drilled for, and they were limited. So the growth of energy in this country was limited to what had leaked out of the shales. But as soon as they discovered the technologies, which is horizontal drilling and hydraulic fracturing, that allowed the companies to get the gas, the oil, out of the shales, totally changed things. So now the oil and gas industry is thriving, and as a result, the benefits are accumulating to consumers in this country rapidly. Every consumer in the United States who heats their homes with natural gas over the last few winters, I saw the statistics and I can't remember exactly what they were, but if they had, anybody that had natural gas saved something like, paid something like 75% less to heat their homes than people that were using fuel oil, heating oil, which is common up in the north. So the benefits of all of the oil and gas activity now that started in the Barnett Shale are really tremendous. And so not only are the companies growing, that's all well and good, that's helping bolster the economy, but consumers are the real beneficiaries. And one of the problems we have in this country that right now that everybody is complaining about, everybody that drives, is the high cost of gasoline. And one of the problems there is that gasoline is refined from crude oil that comes from someplace else for the most part and is imported into this country. And so the projects that Lynn's working on to provide the infrastructure for cars and trucks to run on natural gas is going to go a long way to help help also reduce those gasoline prices. So yes, the energy industry is growing in this country, and the beneficiaries are us, consumers.
And another huge benefit I have to add, the Austin Statesman put out an article in the last couple of days, I don't remember the exact date, but 6 months into the Texas budget year, taxes paid on natural gas are up 73%. So that's money is going back into our states, for our schools, for our fire departments, for our roads. That money is staying here in Texas instead of going out, to other countries. So taxes paid to date. Now this is oil and gas. I wish they would have divided this up for me, but still 1.8 billion paid to date. So that starts. If you want to read that article and also say it's going to get the exact numbers, but when you talk about things going up, and you start seeing a 73% increase in the taxes paid, and knowing that that goes into state coffers here, that we had such a deficit last time the state sessions were in. It's a good thing to know that we're making a huge contribution to that.
Let me comment on that just a minute, because of that, I dealt with that in the past. In Texas, oil and gas taxes are pegged at the 1987 level, which was the year they created the rainy day fund. There are 2 states in the country that have big rainy day funds. One is Texas, one is Alaska. They're both energy producing states. The rainy day funds in Texas and Alaska exceed the total rainy day funds of all the other states combined. But the way the rainy day fund works is, let's say they collected $1,000 in 1987. If they collect $2,000 in 2012, you subtract the first 1,000, and then 75% of the next 1,000 goes into the rainy day fund, and 25% goes into the general budget. If you look at, you go online and see this on the window to state government online, you can see the growth of the rainy day fund in Texas. It now sits at somewhere around $6 billion. It was up as high as $8 billion a couple of years ago, and all that's from oil and gas money.
And that was the fund that was tapped by the legislature so they didn't have to cut education.
Texas, when you read the newspaper about how education is funded, there are 2 terms to look for. One is called general revenue, and the other is called all funds. General revenue is what comes from the taxpayers.